Turn off your video. अच्छा no, video में your thumbnail is there.
Roundup.
What is that?
Seeing. It's waiting to go live.
Okay, meeting is now streaming live.
Yep. Hey, Roshan, good morning. Happy Halloween.
Morning, Gunjan. Happy. What's up? What's happening?
Good, really excited for the evening. We'll have my house will like full of kids today. Yeah.
Okay, and you're off on vacation as well, right?
I'm
This
off
week.
on vacation as well. Hopefully, we'll be able to do this roundup next week from the hills.
Okay, fantastic. Great to have a break.
Oh yeah. Did you know this is the first break I'm taking since 2018?
Boo-hoo, man. Come on.
Okay, let's get started. Enough of small talk now.
All right, what do we have for this week?
So first up, as usual, Roshan, what were the key takeaways from the previous episodes, right? The one
Right.
evolution of SaaS with Shrikant and community building with Sahiba.
Right. So evolution of SaaS, I mean, it was like going back in a time machine with Shrikant. The guy was pre-DevOps before DevOps. The guy was pre-SaaS before SaaS. The guy was pre-everything, everything that we take for granted at this point of time. And it was awesome to get that education in terms of how the technology curve has been, and how things have evolved over time. I mean, we're talking about, over the last 20, 25 years. And Shrikant has been an, innovator, entrepreneur, investor, and he's seen it from multiple different angles. So it was amazing to get that ringside view from him. He's also published an article, I think, if I'm not mistaken, it's published in Inc. 42 or one of those other startup outlets. We should definitely link to it. I think it's a fantastic primer for everyone in order to understand, how things came to be. I always feel that, we take plenty for granted at this point of time. This leaves you with a better appreciation for everything that we have.
And what about Sahiba's episode on community building? Considering you also are a regular speaker at Hello Meets, right? You talk about B2B marketing. So what was it like talking to Sahiba or on a formal? I'm sure you talk to Sahiba on a regular basis, but on a formal platform having an engaged discussion. What was it? What was that like?
Yeah. So Sahiba is a fantastic example of just hustle, pure hustle. To me, the thing that really struck out from that episode was how she started Hello Meets. She wasn't in the startup community when she started. She didn't know too many people, and she started something which is a community startup, right? Which is inherently something based on networking and so on, and knowing too many people. So she's done over 800 meetups in the last 5 years, and to me, it was really interesting how she started from very small beginnings, and hustled all her way through. Because today we have some really eminent people talking on Hello Meets across the world. And the other thing is for a business which was inherently physical, meetups and so on and so forth, the way they've pivoted and in fact turned it into their advantage this year, right, when people haven't been able to meet physically, and they've enabled virtual connections and so on, is again fascinating. It's really amazing. People should listen to it to get like a 101 on how to build a community. So considering that we're trying to build a community of sorts with the Startup Operator, I was like furiously taking notes.
And Sahiba started young also. I guess she was 22, 23 years old when she first the idea of Hello Meets. And then the way she hustled by going to these hotels, asking for a workshop and everything. Yeah. And also and she was eyeing for international expansions before the COVID. But with everything going virtual, it was just a boost for Hello Meets to expand.
Yeah, they've done really well, actually. They've done really well.
All right. So now we have the funding news for the week. A lot of amazing startups got funded in Series A, pre-Series A, seed funding and all. Anything you would want to touch on specifically?
Plenty of good companies getting funded. Hubilo, for example, wants to be the event stack, and considering how events have moved completely virtually, right? I mean, think about it. Marketers typically, in the enterprise at least, have about 30 or 40%, maybe more, of their budgets going into events. And if considering all events have moved virtual, right, they're going to be super relevant, right? And I mean, you've seen this as well, Gunjan, that translating the impact of a physical event into a virtual event is very difficult, right?
Yeah.
And anything that aids that, impacts that, I mean, is going to be super relevant. So that is something that is, I mean, that more power to them, right? I mean, that's really good. In video editing videos online, I haven't really checked out the platform, but I think it's helping marketers, helping marketing teams be self-sufficient.
It's
So
targeting to be like Canva for videos.
yeah,
And
that's fantastic. Yeah, I think they play in the same space as Rocketium.
yeah,
We spoke to Satej.
yeah.
So that's another space that's going to blow up, right? Which is a very DIY, do it yourself, reduce your cost kind of space, right? Fresh to home operates in the same space as Licious. Yeah, considering how Licious has grown, I mean, fresh to home obviously raising 121 million. It's a wow, that's a lot of money, man.
A lot of money.
121
It's also
million.
India's largest Series C.
Wow,
So I was trying to like
crazy.
learn more like how a B2C company that is in the, the
Mm-hmm.
consumer deliverables, right? How do they use such fundings, right? So any inputs on that, any insights on that?
Well, I mean, you either use it to improve your supply side or the demand, right? On the supply side, I think partner networks, building logistics, and so on and so forth. But on the demand side, I guess marketing and so on. So more ads, more customer acquisition, and so on. So 121 million is a lot of cash. Yeah, that's fun. That's interesting. Credgenics is, I think, around debt recovery or something of that sort.
Yeah.
And I think they're also going to get increasingly relevant now with the focus on, lending hasn't happened. I mean, I think they're in the collecting phase right now, right?
Yeah.
So I think they will become increasingly relevant. Yeah, Peelworks works with Kiranas, if I'm not mistaken. And I think considering how Kiranas have been super innovative over the lockdown, right? I mean, where you had stocks of certain things in Kiranas and not on online platforms, right? Yeah, more power to them as well. Overall, I think, directionally very good stuff, money reaching innovation is always a fantastic thing.
So I want to talk about Peelworks a bit, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, so I use Dunzo very frequently, like almost on a daily basis. I Dunzo something or the other at home. So with Peelworks, right, that's empowering the Kirana stores to put up their own inventory online. How do you see this hyper conscious space getting impacted? Because I'm sure it's going to eat up into their business share, the likes of Swiggy Instant and Dunzo, right? Do you see like if more companies like Peelworks come into the picture, do you think their business model is going to get impacted?
Who, the Swiggy Instant and the Big Basket types?
Swiggy Instant, Dunzo, Big Basket.
See, last mile grocery delivery is an open space. I mean, I feel like that is something where multiple people can operate. I mean, because uh, how do you um, how do you justify any of the kiranas around with the likes of Big Basket and Amazon and so on and so forth doing grocery delivery? And they're always going to be around. They're always going to be around. They're always going to there's and thankfully so, right? So they're very resilient businesses. I mean, these are businesses that have been around for generations and will continue to be around for generations. They're what Taleb would call lindy businesses. So the ones that have always survived will continue to survive, right?
So
So
new term to take away. Lindy business, you said.
lindy businesses. So yeah, I mean, I personally feel, I mean, of course they will be impacted, but I think Peelworks will empower these guys a lot more. And I think even if you look at Reliance's play in retail as well, I mean, they're all about working with the Kirana network because they realize that last mile innovation these guys are fantastic. I mean, you can have all of the MBA degrees in the world, but then, I mean, what comes through, hard practice
Hmm.
is untouchable,
Yeah.
so last mile innovation, pretty much everyone in India acknowledges that kiranas are fantastic. So they will continue to exist in the ecosystem.
Right. And also it's good. I mean, the remote cities and all, it's be more beneficial for them. Even Sridhar Vembu is working in rural areas now.
Yeah.
Hopefully we'll see more innovation coming in this space.
Yeah.
All right. So next up, so UPI is like supposedly to cross 2 billion monthly transactions in November, right?
Right.
And they had already expanded into Singapore, setting up the UPI interface over there. And right now they are also targeting Myanmar. So how does it, like, UPI was something that was bred in India and now it is being shipped abroad. So how do you see this panning out in Southeast Asia?
So before that, couple of things that you have to notice about that number, right? I mean, 2 billion transactions. 2 billion
Not a
transactions.
small number at all.
Not a small number at all. I mean, that's just phenomenal adoption, right? I mean, if UPI was a startup, it's the fastest, largest growing startup, I would say, right? And would have like a phenomenal valuation, even in the public markets, I would say. They're just amazing, man. Amazing foresight. Amazing the way the team built this together as well, right? A huge credit to NCPI, iSpirit, and all of them. um, and especially if you contract payment ecosystems anywhere in the world, right? US especially, where you still have this paying in loose change and stuff like that. I mean, UPI is just phenomenal. You can buy flowers and fruits and whatever else, I mean, with scan with a QR code, right? I mean, it's just phenomenal. What I'm excited for also is the 2.0, right, which is the one time mandate feature, where you can pre-authorize a transaction and pay on a later date. It helps both merchants and buyers, so they can pre-book anything and the money gets deducted on a later date, basically. Then they have something called an invoice verification, where the customer can view the invoice before making a payment and make sure that they're paying to the right person. All of these are going to help as it scales further. You also have OD accounts that can now be linked to UPI, help smaller businesses. They've added a feature on verifying whether a merchant is verified by UPI or not, and so on. Now, all of these are going to make it a lot more robust. So, uh, seriously, I mean, I don't think there's a better payment interface, payment system anywhere in the world. And, again, this expansion to Myanmar, I look at it as India exporting its IP, right, per se. So I think you will see this expansion to Myanmar, to Bangladesh, Sri Lanka, Nepal, so on and so forth. I think it will happen, simply given the innovation that is possible with something like this. Again, one of those things that we take for granted, but uh, think about it, right? I mean, India is an informal economy, and we often, wonder, how we're going to tax anything, or how we're going to raise any money capital at all. Considering the growth of UPI and the convenience it offers, right? I mean, this is a very key thing, and I'm sure that governments outside of India will actively encourage this as well. And it's only getting started, with
Right.
everything that the India stack has and so on. There are plenty of services that's going to be built around this central system.
Right. So even Google is in talks with the US Federal Reserve, right, of implementing a similar system like UPI in US, right? And I guess they're targeting the deployment of such a system in 2023, 2024. So it's really interesting. And also imagine the backend, the infrastructure you need, right? Last month, UPI recorded 1.8 billion transactions. This month, they're gunning for 2 billion. And
Yeah,
this is coming at a
it's
time when
insane.
the
So
rural
one of yeah,
markets have not yet been penetrated properly.
yeah.
So the potential is it's huge over here.
It's amazing. The potential is just amazing, right? Considering also, the domestic market that we have. The problem with the US is that they have some legacy, right? I mean, they already have some systems. They have to phase them out. The advantage that we had is that we could leapfrog. We could leapfrog from cash to UPI, right? So yeah, I mean, that'll be interesting to see how. something similar develops in other ecosystems as well.
Okay, so next up we have TechSparks 2020,
Mm-hmm.
right? Again, Shraddha Sharma is someone who I closely follow. I love the interviews that she does, the likes of Ratan Tata and folks. Ratan is my favorite interview which she has done.
Yeah,
And
check out the interview with Aditya Puri as well. That's
yeah,
brilliant interview as
I'll
well.
do that. But yeah, this is your story hosting TechSparks 2020 with AWS. What are your biggest expectations on the event?
I just want to give a huge shout out to Shraddha Sharma and Yourstory, man. I mean, you cannot find a bigger cheerleader to startups than what she's put together, right? Um, Especially they're starkly contrasted with the rest of the media janta with startups, who think that they're extremely intellectual by dissecting, critiquing every damn thing that startups do, right? It's almost like, watching a kid learning to walk and then ridiculing it, right? So, because that is what startups are. Startups stumble, startups fail a lot, startups are messy, but they're learning, right? And they're important for the ecosystem. So I cannot understate the amount of work that Your Story and Shraddha Sharma have done, and to be able to do it for 11 years, right? It comes from, I think, a very sincere conviction in helping startups. Because if you look at her, I think for the longest time she had, I don't know if she still has it in her bio. I'm here to tell stories or something of that sort, right? Tell me yours. Um, I think she really, really believes in that. There's a sincere conviction in that, and it shows in everything that she does, right from the events to the products to the interviews and everything. So really, more power to Shraddha Sharma and the Your Story team. I've been following their Twitter feed pretty closely with the TechSparks event and stuff. So there's plenty of interesting interviews, and they've also been able to curate content really well. So yeah, I more power to them. Really, more power to them, and I hope TechSparks continues to grow um, in size and audience and in engagement year on year.
Right. So yeah, as you rightly said, right, Your Story first started off as just a media publication house, a digital media public, one of the first startup focused publication in India, right? Then we had the likes of Economic Times and Mint and all enter the space. But from a media publication house, it moved on to events, it moved on to like other lines of businesses, and now they also coming up with the new product called Your Story Connect, with
Yeah,
which they facilitate networking within founders and
yeah.
investors and stuff. So yeah, I mean it's amazing, right? Like just how, and this came at when it was 2010 or 11, I guess was when Your Story started.
I think 2009, if I'm not mistaken. Uh, I think Shraddha used to work for Networkating before. I'm not
Yeah.
very sure. There were very few people writing about startups at that point of time. Mint had not started writing anything at that time. ET startups was not born, I think, at that time. I think a good place to look up is JPK's episode, right? Jaydevan's episode on Startup Operator, where we discussed how media itself has evolved. At around 2008 2009, it was still a lot about what someone in Infosys said, or somebody won a $5 million account, or someone moved into some global leadership role or something of that, right?
People narrative has changed
Very.
now.
So business reporting was a lot on public market reporting and stuff like that. Startups were not sexy at that point even, you know
Yeah.
and then get to now, where almost 50-60% of the any business news will be like startup focused, right? So it's a fantastic evolution in that sense.
No, no, I agree. I agree to that. All right. So now your favorite section of the roundup, Vembu's wisdom.
Yeah,
So in this, so this is another old tweet by Vembu sir, which is talking about how, by CEOs taking in a lot of pressure, right? It somehow trickles down to the employees, right? Something which I can say based on our relationship in Vimo. Whenever you're taking a lot of pressure, it somehow comes down to the team, but it's fun, okay, as a feedback.
yeah, it's
But
just a contrasting type of business to run, man. I mean, so Nitin obviously runs Zerodha, which is another bootstrapped success. right? They're again a fantastic company. And then, obviously Vembu sir runs Zoho, which is another bootstrap success. And both of these are huge businesses, right? I often say, look, I mean, neither of them are the right way or the wrong way. Bootstrapping or funding businesses, it really depends on the founder's temperament, and it really depends on what kind of a business they want to run. If you are the types who wants to, grow 20 or 30% year on year, and you want to run it for like 20 years, then go the bootstrapping way, right? I mean, it's perfectly fine. But if you are the types who wants to, build a market leader in 10 years time, and want to do that 2x 3x sort of a jump and multiple, and really want to do multiple gigs in your life, multiple 10-year gigs, or multiple 15-year gigs, or whatever, maybe less than that, in your life, then you decide the kind of company you want to run. But don't be stuck in the middle, because once you take VC money, I mean, the expectation is fairly simple, right? I mean, you have to grow at a multiple every year, because that is how your valuation increases, and that is how the potential for return for any of your investors increases, right? So there is not a lot of sympathy for people who take on funding and then bitch about the fact that they have to grow that much, right? Obviously, you have to. And it also induces pressure, obviously, on your team and so on. So build the sort of team that will enable that sort of growth, which is why, I mean, it's very difficult to find a lot of the large company types that can successfully transition into startups, because as much as you hear about the pace, as much as you hear about how fast people are running, so on and so forth, it's just another thing to operate in that environment, to not be able to switch off, to just have that growth expectation quarter on quarter on quarter. I mean, look at how our targets have varied over the course of this year. Fine, you hit your target, good, it's going to be 30% more on the next, then another 30%, then another 30%, and so on, right? So so yeah, I mean, that's just the nature of the beast. And Vembu sir has a very tongue-in-cheek comment on this. It's hilarious. Yeah.
So I guess in Shwetank's episode, Shwetang spoke about this whole VC investable business, right? What is the expectation from the VC side of the table, that
Hmm.
we need to recover the investment in, let's say, 5 years or 6 years. We cannot wait till 10, 12 years for it to recover, right? So yeah, pretty interesting. Okay, so we have two really interesting episodes coming out. One is being future ready, and the other one is building in edtech. Right?
Yeah.
You have spoken with these folks. What was it like? What can people expect out of these?
Yeah, both these episodes are fantastic. I mean, I'm really looking forward to how people react to them. So Harish and Ramanand's episode was like, it was like talking to a couple of friends after you've read something or after you've listened to something. I mean, I remember, back in the day, we would listen to albums and then exchange notes. It was sort of like that. I mean, it felt like I knew them from before. I mean, it was a very easy conversation. And I was skeptical in between that, will this translate to good content for people, because sometimes there is a little bit of a divergence. You could have a fantastic time talking to the guest, but then, I mean, that might not exactly mean like good content for people. But then thanks for validating it, Gunjan. I mean, the content was fine as well. I mean, more than fine, you know
It's not a different kind of a conversation as you
yeah.
compare to like a previous episodes. So I'm really
Yeah.
excited to see how people are going to react to this.
Yeah. So it's a very different episode in the sense that so Harish and Ramanan basically run Choose to Think, which is equipping people with skills required to be future ready. And typically when you talk about skills for the future and stuff, I mean, people will have a bunch of data science or AI ML courses, Hadoop and whatnot on their offerings. But then, I mean, these guys have abstracted at a higher level than that, right? So they picked things like being able to read well, being able to talk well, so on and so forth, right? Which I feel it's going to be super relevant going forward, because if you think about it, all of your lower order thinking is going to get automated, right? Arguably someone else might code certain things better than you, right? But then you have to have these intrinsically human skills a lot more operating at a lot more higher level than ever before. I think that is the way you kind of be relevant in the era of automation and artificial intelligence and so on, right? So these things, like reading something, abstracting certain values and applying it on a daily basis, those are things that will become super relevant in the future. And I love talking to them. I really, really love talking to them. In fact, I mean, I'm reading one of the books they recommended. They recommended Alchemy by Rory Sutherland,
Right.
which is a fantastic book. I mean, I'm just about 40, 50 pages into the book, and I'm loving it. It's a must read for anyone in marketing and advertising. Literally every paragraph is chock full of wisdom. It's hilarious. I really like that Brit sort of humor, classic Brit humor. I was a huge fan of Woodhouse when I was growing up, and so this is
You
sort
would
of
know.
like a cut to that.
Mhm.
It's fantastic. You have to check out this episode as well. Um, and building in edtech with Saurabh was it was a very comprehensive episode. It was a deep dive into edtech because Saurabh is a 3-time edtech founder. He's had a couple of exits before. One of the things that struck me is how he has sort of backward integrated each time, right? I mean, so he first started coaching engineering grads. Then he moved on to a school with Vedantu, and right now, I mean, he's talking about teaching 6-7 year olds things like critical thinking, collaboration, communication, and so on through games. So that's really amazing. I mean, it also sort of reflects the growing ambitions of founders. As the startup ecosystem matures, they're willing to take on bigger problems, greater problems, and not just in it to make a quick buck as such. So I really loved that idealism that he still has after 10 or 11 years working in edtech, because it's very difficult. Once you start operating in that business, you realize that there are certain stakeholders who may not have that idealism that you have. In places like education, healthcare, there's a little bit of more than a little bit of idealism that you need to sort of start up in that space, right? And it's good to see someone who has retained that over a period of 10 or 11 years. That just shows his conviction and the change that he wants to cause. So yeah, fantastic, more power to him.
Yeah, and also he has been someone operating in the edtech space ever since college, right? So
Yeah.
the sort of insights and all which you would have to share. I mean, I'm personally very excited for that.
Yeah, it's a fantastic primer for anyone who's looking to build in the tech space. So yeah, I'm really excited for both these episodes that are coming out.
Right. All right. So with that, we come to the end of this week's round. Roshan, thank you so much. I know you. This was a pretty early start to your day, right? But yeah, it was excellent talking to you. And yeah, folks, please keep an eye on our Twitter handles and LinkedIn when the episodes will.
Gunjan, are you going to announce when the website is going to be live
Oh
so
yeah, the
you can keep
website will
your
be
neck on the
coming.
line?
The website will be coming live around 20th of November. That is the timeline I'm stuck with. End
Okay,
of
I
this.
had a different date in mind.
Which
So, folks, what we're trying to do is create a community around all of the content that we produce, and I think the website will be that central focus going forward. So, I'm really excited for you guys to check it out sometime, and give us your feedback as well. We'll be starting a newsletter as well around plenty of the things that we do. A lot of good stuff getting baked. So, yeah, hope to have your support in the future.
Yeah, please do let us know what is it that you would be looking forward to the most from the website, the newsletters, and everything. And we will ensure that we are able to live up to those expectations.
And hopefully it'll be live sooner
And
than 20th of November. Yeah.
it will be. But hey, yeah. So that's a wrap, folks. Have enjoy the weekend ahead, and we'll see you again next week.
All right. Bye bye. Stay safe and take care.